Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Outsider, which is a HBO show, new show just launched. This is episodes 1 and 2 because they premiered together. Fish in the Barrel is episode 1, and Roanoke is episode 2. So this is the Stephen King adaptation, which the first two episodes that the least are directed by Jason Bateman, who's also in it. Ben Mendelsohn also stars, he's kind of the lead character. The premise of this one is that a young boy in Georgia is found murdered, and all of the evidence, DNA, fingerprints, witnesses, all point towards Jason Bateman's character, Terry Maitland, as the guilty party. They make a big show and dance of arresting him in front of everyone. They've got all this evidence, but the kind of twist of the show, even though it's fairly late in episode 1, and we'll start this spoiler free, it's worth mentioning, we'll start spoiler free because it is a premiere.
But this is still just the premise.
Yeah, and warn you before spoilers. But the premise of the show is that contradicting evidence, kind of that would normally prove that he's innocent, also pops up. But they're both ironclad is the problem, and from there it becomes okay, what's going on? And I mean, I think the trailer did tease a supernatural element of some kind. Very, very vague in what it was teasing, but there was definitely.
It's based on a Stephen King book, so that's not unexpected necessarily.
No, but like it's not like so in your face. It's very kind of. I mean, I think watching the episodes themselves, there's one or two moments, particularly in episode 2, that really kind of starts poking towards it a bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, what this is that. I feel like if I give my opinion on what's going on, it's kind of a spoiler, so I can't, I suppose. But I will say, I'll say that what the appeal of this is and what the potential of this story is that they're taking a concept, and I can't say what the concept is because I feel like that's a spoiler, but they're taking that and doing it through the lens of we're going to actually do it as if it's a HBO cop show, and as if these real grounded cop characters encounter a murder that they can't explain, and it's this the reason for it is something that we've seen in other things, but we've never seen it from this perspective of we're going to do the HBO gritty cop show.
Yeah,
we're going to do True Detective, but the solution's actually this thing.
Do you know what? I think True Detective is a really apt thing to bring up because bear in mind I didn't really watch much of seasons 2 or 3, like barely any of them. This kind of feels like, in many ways, a spiritual successor to season 1 in some of the elements that was playing with.
You mean the narrative structure in the first episode, or
there's a little bit of the narrative and just that was playing with potential supernatural elements and stuff like that. Just a lot of ideas that it was kind of going with.
Yeah. So I guess that's the gist of it. So I'll ask the question: Car, did you enjoy these first 2 episodes of The Outsider?
It's not bad. I don't love it. I think there's some pacing issues. I think the episodes, they're both like a full hour, and I think that's just too much for what this needs.
It's HBO. Every episode's going to be a full hour.
I know, but I don't think it needs it, unfortunately.
That's just what HBO does. I'm fairly positive as well. I wasn't super into it to begin with. I thought the first, like, say, third of the first episode felt a little bit like it was going through the motions, but I actually think that's almost intentional because it's almost like, okay, so we found this body, we're arresting the guy, here's like all the scenes of them finding the witnesses and the evidence. It felt like it was just so by the numbers and what it was doing, but I think that's kind of the point, because the whole premise of the show is like, okay, yeah, it is just kind of by the numbers until the other side of it shows up, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't as clear cut as it was before. Once it started bringing in the evidence that suggested that the opposite was also true, I think that's where it started getting more interesting. It started getting a bit more enjoyable, and because now I'm seeing Ben Mendelsohn, who plays the lead cop. I'm seeing him and the others try their best to, because I think there's an interesting curve in this over the 2 episodes, really, where Mendelsohn is convinced 100% that he's caught the man that he's supposed to get, and he's almost out for blood the way that he's going after him. And then he spends a lot of time trying to disprove the other evidence, but then there gets to a point where he just can't do that anymore. He has to accept the possibility that something weird's going on, and that there's possibly a killer still out there. Even when the DA still wants to just go for it. Let's try and do this.
It's why I think the second episode is a lot better, or at least more enjoyable. I don't think there's anything bad in that. That first act, the first episode that we're talking about. I don't think it's bad stuff that it's doing. It's necessary, but it's just not as interesting or entertaining to watch. I think the second episode is better in that regard for sure. And there are some like lines of dialogue that really took me out of it, I will say, in the second episode as well. But once I get past those, I'm enjoying the premise and the angle that it's taking.
Yeah, it's got good actors. There's actually the lawyer is one of the cops from the night of, which was a nice.
Yeah, which was funny when there was a bit towards the middle, towards the end of the first episode, where I was like, "Are we doing kind of the things that the night of was kind of poking at?" There was some real thematic crossover there, and I thought it was funny given that he was in that.
Yeah, I think my bigger hang-up, and probably the reason why that first third of the first episode felt so by the numbers, I think was the direction. And it's not that it wasn't going, because I think Bateman's direction's fine, but he still kind of feels like he's a director who's trying to, how do I put this? Like, he's still trying to make it look like a professional director doing a HBO show, and it comes off feeling a little bit false. Like, it's not necessarily because there's a moment actually in episode 2, which I agree was better overall, because once it got to the premise, I was enjoying it a lot more. But there's a moment where it's like a car's driving away from somewhere, and there's like the shot they have is of the van or the car going away is a close up on a couple of little rocks over the side of the road. And it's like this, the deep focus shot where the van's out of focus, the rocks are in focus, and it shifts focus to just a little bit of a dead branch or a weed or something in front of it. And I watched that shot and I went, okay, I know what this shot's doing, but it feels really random what they've chosen to put as the center of the focus of the image, rather than say, like, because you've seen this done a million times before. You've seen, the first example that comes to mind or something's the armadillo in Texas Chainsaw at the start or something. You got the thing in the focus, the vehicle's moving one way or the other, it doesn't really matter. You can see it's happening, but we're focusing on one object. And sometimes it'll be like something really beautiful, like a flower or something like that, or whatever. But this was just such a random couple of rocks that didn't feel like it. I don't know. It felt like I want to do the fancy shot, even though I have no reason to do the fancy shot, but I'm going to do the fancy shot anyway.
No, I get that. I felt like he was overly ambitious for his skill level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that sounds really harsh, because I think it's pretty solidly done for the most part. It's just
no, that's the thing. I think it's solid direction, but you can feel it trying to punch above its weight. And that makes you notice that it's not at the next tier. Whereas if it wasn't doing those things, you'd be like, yeah, no, this is still pretty good.
This is a very complex way of saying something that I can put much simpler, actually. Sometimes I'll talk about confident direction, and sometimes it's not flashy, but it's confident because it's doing exactly what it wants to do and what it knows it needs to do. I think this is an example of it just not being completely confident. It's trying to be a little overly flashy, because he's not confident in just playing it safe, or simple, maybe, is a better way of putting it.
I think that is pretty much sums it up.
So there's moments here or there of it being a bit more flashy than it needs to be, and it took me out of it because it felt like it was going too far. But it wasn't a huge deal, especially as it went on, because again, once it got to the premise, once it got to there's evidence why he was also somewhere else, and once that comes into it, it starts getting a lot more interesting. Obviously, it's not a cheery couple of episodes. There's no comic relief or anything like that. It's a very dreary show. Yeah. We're dealing with murdered children, the families of the murdered children, and we'll talk about that family of gingers and spoilers. That's a depressing family if I've ever.
if we must.
Too close to home for Connor. But so the performances are good. I think I like that Mendelssohn's character in the first episode, he's so gung-ho, like surely he's got the right man and he's out for blood. I like that as we go into episode 2, he is a character, we don't spend all season with him sort of like realising he was wrong. He's kind of already there by episode 2, and we're already like past that point, and
he's not ready to admit that he was definitely wrong, but he's open to the possibility.
Yeah, he understands that if he is wrong, then there's another killer out there, and that's something he wants to still catch. It's not like the DA who just wants to win. He wants to check the box and say they've put away the bad guy, kind of thing. So you got that, and obviously we're dancing around a lot what episode 2 is, because things go places, and it is full spoiler territory.
Yeah, there's definitely some big things at the end of the first episode that shake up what episode 2 is just by its nature.
Yeah. I actually think you're thinking at the start of the second
Is it
episode.
the start of the second episode?
Yeah.
You might. No, you're right. It is the start of the second episode. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Because the first episode just kind of ends in a sort of downbeat moment.
Yeah. I watched them pretty much back to back. I had like 5 minutes in between, so they kind of blurred in my head a little
This
bit.
is always the problem when they are two episodes together. It's not a big deal. Ultimately, we take it as one big episode. But so no, I think I would recommend checking it out. I don't think it's the home run that Watchmen is, or something like The Night Of was. But this is the weird thing: is that The Night Of like had one of the best pilots I've ever seen. I think there's every chance that by the end of this season, this show will be more consistently, good than The Night Of was.
It's possible. Yeah.
Because The Night Of peaked insanely high and then was good, but was never as great as that again. The finale got better again, but it wasn't as good as the first episode.
The rest of it was still very good. Like it wasn't like just it's okay. It was still very good TV. It was just nowhere near the level of the first episode, so it kind of feels like more drastic than it actually was, I think.
I do think it definitely doesn't feel like A tier HBO. This feels like B tier HBO, and that sounds almost really insulting. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it feels a little bit hokier in places. When it teases kind of the real potential villain, as it were, it's a bit of a cheesy kind of moment, and that's okay if that's what we're doing. It almost feels like they've taken like a Stephen King book that's not meant to be taking this dead HBO Wired level series, and they're trying to sort of mold it with that. But that's kind of what makes it interesting. It's like, no, we're going to do that, but with this element.
I get that. It feels inherently like it should be a little bit schlockier.
Yeah. But I think that's actually what makes it interesting, though, is that they're going to do this HBO style of cop show with this concept.
No, I'm with you. I think it helps that you've got a great cast there to kind of really commit to the seriousness that they're treating it with.
Oh yeah, I think Mendelsohn actually getting to the point where he believes what I already think is going on, give or take, is kind of what the excitement of the show is for me. It's like seeing him sort of get the pieces and put it together and ultimately believe that this is real, that this is maybe happening. I'm excited about that. So
and it's nice to see Mendelsohn utilized to his fullest extent, because
plays a lot of side characters and stuff. Yeah.
He's often he's a great actor, and he's often just kind of underutilized. He's just there a lot of the time.
Yeah, so I won't go into spoilers then. So full spoilers for episodes 1 and 2 of The Outsider. I will take this time actually to thank our Patreon producers. I don't usually do it in the TV reviews, but since we've got a spoiler-free to spoiler section, I'll use this gap. David Short, Alison M. Fordice, Cindy Palacios and Tyler Hess. Thank you very much to you guys. They are Patreon producers, which means they're Patreon producers at a $20 tier or up, but you can be a patron at $1 or more at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support all the content we make and keep all of it coming and get some bonuses. $1 per month will do that. So go and have a look-see. So yeah, full spoilers then for the first 2 episodes. So clearly, early on, I'm immediately going, it's a shapeshifter, right? That's immediately,
That feels like the angle it wants to go with.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll swerve it a bit more, but at the very least, this is something that has duplicated his biology, to a T, yes. Right? He's got the fingerprints, he's got a DNA, whatever it is. And we see that hooded figure with the messed up face, which you have to assume is the shapeshifter, watching on a couple of key
it's
points.
Kind of like the face looks kind of melted.
Yeah. I would almost describe it as Clayface-esque, and that's why, just to go time with the shapeshifter stuff.
It feels like it can just be molded into anyone's face, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously there's a big detail in the second episode that kind of is, okay, this is the point where he got his DNA to copy. It was this cut that he got.
Yeah, that was some of the dialogue that I thought just completely took me out of it. Because the kids, they're like, oh, did anything weird happen? And the kid's just like, oh, he got cut. And okay, sure, I buy that a kid remembers this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Mendelssohn's there going to the wife going, what happened? Tell me all about it. And she's just like, it was a cut. I mean, and he's taking it so seriously. And I'm like, I barely remember what cut I got yesterday.
To be fair, I think you're overselling how much how stern he was when he asked these questions. He's a lot more just kind of calm and contemplating the details.
I feel like he was really in on this cut, as opposed to the conversation that he was having in the living room. So this is over at the stairs, and he's really fixating in on it. And I'm like, I mean, people don't really remember just a cut that much.
it's just something to go on. I didn't necessarily feel him like go up a couple of dials from the previous scene. I don't know. I disagree with this ramping up too much. I mean, obviously, we suspect that this cut's going to be important. That this cut is going to be.
Yeah, I get why we do.
Yeah.
But I just, for me, it felt like he was kind of fixating on it as like, oh, this is the lead. I'm like, and maybe it is. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure it will eventually lead to something because this is a TV show after all.
For me, he was restrained enough and just sort of like getting the details, but not because it's not like he gets excited. It's not like he starts like like you can see that he doesn't understand why he's asking this. He doesn't understand why this might be important, but he's just looking for the details because all of it might be important.
Yeah, I think it's when he asks, the mother was like, okay, tell me what happened, and she's like, I don't know, and he really looks like he wants to press it. I'm like, I don't know, it took me out of the moment.
Because that happens after he talks to the kid, though. That's after the kid goes upstairs already, and he just asks a couple of follow-ups. I mean, do you remember this cut? He's just looking for more details, and she says, "Well, it was a cut. We put stuff on it, but that was it."
Yeah.
So let's rewind a bit. So they come to arrest him. I will say there was one. It was clear that it was jumping back and forth narratively once it got going. There was one kind of weird cut though to me. That felt a bit strange. It was when he got the warrant to go and arrest him, and after he got in the car, it cut to one of the scenes where they're checking, I don't know, DNA or something, I don't know, and it felt kind of weird to me, and it wasn't until the next one I was like, okay, they're just going back and forth, like as he's on the way to pick him up, there's all these like flashbacks to all the pieces of evidence that have led them to this point, but the first one felt a little jarring to me. I don't know if it could have been just clearer in either the visual style, maybe. Or
I think that probably would have helped, or maybe just something of a transition that wasn't just as if it was the next scene, especially when it was so early in the episode.
But other than that, I did kind of like Bateman's reaction to being arrested. I thought that played well, and everything, throughout the rest of the episode. I loved that Howie, the lawyer they call in, like he's like sending his man to this this hotel because this is the thing, he was in a conference, like a teachers conference, in another city 70 miles away, and it's like, well, he says, I was there with two other teachers, we did this, we did that, I was in a room with hundreds of people, or dozens of people at least, and they're looking for security camera footage, and it's like, oh, you see a little bit of his face, but it's not that great quality. Meanwhile, this camera footage they've got of the suspect, if you will, who's left the crime scene, they've got him like turning and looking at the camera, and as they even point out, it's like he wants to be caught. And this is the first time I went shapeshifter. Like he's making it clear, hey, it's this guy that looks like me.
He's being so blatant. Like they point out all these things. Like instead of just taking the cab that was there outside, he calls for one and makes sure that they register under his name.
Yeah,
and it's just like this is weird. Like clearly, this is too specific.
He wants a record. He wants a record of everything. But I actually kind of love, because the guy at the security guy at the hotel is like, oh, but there was a TV crew here filming that day. Maybe they caught him. And what's so great about this, just in the terms of like the security camera footage that the cops have versus what they now have as like evidence to back up that he was elsewhere, is that there's a great moment where Mendelsohn pulls someone into his office and says, hey, I think it's the pregnant cop, and says, hey, what do you see here? And she's like, oh, it's a bit grainy, talking about the photos they have off of their security footage. And it was just a simple little thing, because when you see the TV crew footage, because it's a TV crew and not a security camera, it's not grainy at all. It's like, no, there's a HD camera pointing at his face as he's speaking and answering a...
And it's really clearly him, and there is absolutely no getting around it.
Yeah, there's no disputing it. And then I love the chase for because he remembers that he picked up a book in the gift shop. So they send in how he sends in his guy again, but Mendelsohn gets there first, finds the book, and he's literally walking out. He's bought the book, and no one touches him because they're too expensive. That was kind of the thing. And Howie's guy recognized, oh, you wouldn't happen to have a book in there, would you? He's like, yep. He's like, all right. But this was the thing, is that after they checked the prints, and Mendelsohn shows it to the DA, he says, this matches him, but so does the ones in the van. And the DA is like, oh, did you log this evidence yet? It's like, well, of course I did. That's the law. Like, I'm not cheating here, because I was suspecting that he was there to get that book first, just to make sure that they couldn't get it. And
it did feel like that, especially as he was so intent on just nailing him for this that you kind of assume that it was going that route.
Yeah, I really. So because that was kind of a good sign of his character, is that okay, even though he's felt very vindictive so far, it's like no, he does have a moral center. He's not just this corrupt.
It makes it feel like no, he's being vindictive because there's a dead kid, and not out of just being petty and other stuff that you've seen before on this type of show.
Because the big thing about it is, of course, we find out is that he lost a son a couple of years ago to cancer, not to murder, just to cancer. But because they have this suspect who's the little league coach, when they pick him up, he says, "Did you ever touch my son?" And Bateman's reaction to that I thought was quite good as well. This what are you accusing me of? Like, how could you ask me that? That's absurd. Yeah. And probably one of my favorite scenes early on in the second episode when Mendelsohn goes
up to that.
Sorry.
The follow up to that.
Yeah. The follow up is when he goes to see him. Mendelsohn is not supposed to go speak to him without a lawyer. Both Bateman's lawyer and Mendelssohn's bosses and DA would all be livid that this happened. But he goes to see him at the middle of the night in the prison. He's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And he
tries to get the cuffs off and just really just have a relaxed conversation, but he's not allowed to push it that far.
Yeah. The guard's just like, "No, not happening." But. And actually, even before he said it, I said, I know what he's here for. Forget any details he asked for afterwards. He's literally just here to ask him if he did it, because he needs to see, he needs to ask him man to man and to hear the answer. He needs to look in his eyes as he answers the question, because at this point, he doesn't know what to think anymore. He's completely conflicted because the evidence is so 50-50.
It's understandable that he has no idea what to think, because it's pretty contradictory.
Yeah, but I shouldn't even say 50-50. The evidence is 100-100. Like, that's really what's happening here. It's not that they're both maybes. Both of them are ironclad.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And he says, obviously, he keeps saying no. He says no to everything. No, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. He rephrases it multiple times. But I love the follow up to the earlier thing when he says, you remember when you asked me if I touched your son? And Mendelsohn says, "Be very careful what you say next." That's it's very intimidating. And I actually just thought he was going to say, "I'll never forget you asked me that." That
just something simple.
Yeah, that really struck me and hurt. Like someone would say that to me.
Yeah. Just the idea that hurt more than the fact that he'd ruined his life by dragging him in front of everyone.
Yeah. And obviously, in a roundabout way, he kind of gets that point across, of course. But he talks about how when your kid was in my team. And he was the smallest kid in the team, and he was always nervous. The kids made fun of him because he was so small and he could never hit anything. So I taught him how to do things a different way, and it changed his reputation. And he just it was this story about how he clearly cared about his son. He clearly cared about this kid on his team. It made the point. No, he mattered to me. So when you asked me when I touched him, in a way, I guess I kind of wish I hope I did. Yeah. And it was just I really liked that scene. It was probably up until that point in the two episodes, the best scene from just a drama perspective.
I think, without a question of a doubt as well. It's easily it was a whole step above everything else. Because
the other thing that happens, of course, in the first episode, and I'm laughing a little bit here because it almost got absurd in the second episode, just how far this went. Because the mum of the murdered kid, right? After the funeral, after having a bit of a freak out at the police station, gets angry. There's this sort of silent scene just to music where she gets her son's baseball bat and just starts hitting the table, but she has a medical issue afterwards and starts to collapse, and we find out later that she outright dies. And so we have the father and the older son who are left now. And there's a scene of them in the second episode where they're buying caskets for the mum, and they've just buried the other son, and it just looks so miserable. And we get to the point where Bateman's coming in for his court date to is he getting out here or whatever? This is where they present evidence. Not the trial. It's not that yet.
Just whether he can get bail or not.
Yeah. But he's coming in, and they've got guards, and there's people shouting. There's a crowd formed. And someone jumps the fence, and he's got a hat on and a scarf over his mouth and stuff. But I immediately went, "That's the older son. He's about to get shot, and it's going to be just the dad left. This entire family is just crumbling." And sure enough, and it's this pretty brutal scene actually, where he shoots the pregnant cop in the ankle or the shin even, and then. He shoots another cop. One of the guards at the front gets shot. Bateman gets shot in the neck, and Mendelsohn takes him down. And when he takes off the hat and that, we see who it is. And
It's a good shot. He took him down right through the middle of the head as well.
Yeah, and Bateman dies. Like, and his dying words is he's looking right into Mendelssohn's eyes saying, "I didn't do it." Like, he's like, he really needs him to believe him. Like, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
I never killed him.
I think it wasn't me, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't me. Yeah,
because I thought that was a nice touch of potential ambiguity, because it was like, which one wasn't him, which is why I feel like it was that line. Even though it's very clear, we know it's not him, and we know there's some more going on. But I did wonder, was he going to potentially try and spin it the other way?
Yeah, it wasn't me. Really good line. And it's something that the wife brings up later as well. His last words weren't to me; they were to you, because he needed you to believe that he didn't do this.
Yeah.
So, and then the father of this family, and this is the thing, when you see him like making a noose, you're like, of course he's going to try and kill him. Why wouldn't he at this point? His entire family's dead.
All his family in like 2 weeks.
Has it even been 2 weeks? I mean, like
I'm assuming so, because it was at least 4 days from the first death, because we see the mother screaming at the morgue, going, "Oh, I want my son back to bury him." So I'm assuming there's a little bit of time passing.
Not that I'm disputing that 2 weeks isn't quick enough time to
okay.
killed.
I will say it's at least a week, but I'm just saying I feel like some time is passing here or there, so I'm going 2. But I mean, I could be off on that.
But yeah, so he kills himself. Well, it doesn't actually quite succeed. He's in the hospital later, but he's probably not going to make it, at least not in any meaningful way.
I think it's probably funnier in a dark, tragic way if he does.
I guess, yeah. There's a point with this family, with this entire family, because that was the thing when they're at the hospital and they find out about this. Like, the nurses or doctors were asking the other cop from the GBI, which it felt to me like someone made a typo when they were like printing the FBI shirts. Now again, it says Georgia. It's for Georgia. I get it, but like, it made me laugh because I'd never seen it before.
I bet they chose that intentionally.
Yeah, GBI, because G and F are a pretty normal thing to typo.
Yeah, they're right next to each other.
Yeah, right? But. They kept asking him, like, can you sign off on his organs being used, because there's no point in keeping him alive. But it's because he's got no family to like sign off on his body. There's no family left.
I did think it was interesting, when he's hanging himself. He's essentially said by this runner just coming past, and who sees it as it happens. But we see then the melted face dude just standing in the background at the back of the road.
We could probably just call him the outsider, really, just to keep it.
We probably could, yeah. But I thought, okay, that's interesting. Like, is he targeting this family in a way? Because like the mother's medical condition, again, it felt kind of random.
Does he just want? Is this because after the victim, he wants to kind of watch the destruction it causes rather than targeting the rest of them specifically?
Could be, yeah.
Wants to see the fallout. I mean, it's worth mentioning because the crime itself, they didn't just murder, he sodomized the kid with a branch. It was pretty, brutal.
Yeah.
Sexual to fairly sexual. I mean, I don't think they said anything other than the branch, but I mean, it's still pretty sexual. So
I mean, it's sodomy. It's sexual by nature.
Yeah. Well, I just mean I don't think we heard that he did anything himself. Touch to touch, if you will, is what I mean. But. Yeah. Oh, they did bite him, actually, so...
Yeah, that's kind of a weird choice, isn't it?
I mean, he's into kidnapping kids and sodomizing with branches. He's already got a bit of a weird taste on him, so...
I mean, sure, but a bite feels oddly specific in a way that the others are... Okay, they're serial killer things.
Can he pretend to be the kid? Now that he has his DNA, is that something he can do?
Now,
admittedly, there's no family to torment now by showing up as the dead kid, but...
Well, yeah, what's the benefit of that?
Yeah. But it does raise some questions of who else he might try and, I mean, obviously the one other thing that we pretty much know he's doing, we don't see it outright, but it's heavily implied that Bateman's daughters, one of them, is seeing him on a regular basis at night out the window and even in the room.
I'm intrigued. Is she seeing him in the form that we are, or something? Because she obviously doesn't see her dad, right?
Yeah,
that's very clear because she'd have said that.
Yeah, and she wouldn't necessarily scream at the sight of her dad, potentially, depending.
No, I mean, maybe if, at the stage where he's supposed to be locked up in prison and she's screaming.
Yeah.
Or after he's dead. She'd probably scream then.
Yeah, probably, or just accept that it's a ghost because she's a kid and
Sure,
she's young enough
but
to just think like that.
right, but she would have said something if she was seeing
Yeah,
him in that form. So I do wonder, is she just seeing a figure that is clearly male? Is she seeing the misshapen face? I'm intrigued.
yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, is it a targeting of the family? Because obviously the whole thing with the van, like being where in was it Dayton they were visiting because that's
Yeah,
where Bateman's dad's in a hospital, and the idea that the van was sort of like abandoned there by this other car thief, this teenager who was like going from car to car, and the fact that that's where Bateman got this cut, like. What was it? Just a chance encounter with one person, and that's what's brought him here because this is where he can get away with this because that's whose DNA he's got, or did he target him specifically? Was it a targeted, or was it just no? I happen to get this guy's DNA, so
was he the male nurse?
yeah, was he the male nurse? Yeah,
Yeah,
or potentially just if he's bleeding all over the place. I mean, anyone who has access to the area could maybe get some of the blood, but
yeah, that's possible.
unless it needs to be physical contact, unless it's more like a sting or something like that, where
Could be
like a reverse sting, where that's just like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it takes instead of gives, if that makes sense.
which is why I was wondering: is the bite specific? Was the cut from a bite?
Oh,
did
sure.
he catch him on the way down, sort of thing? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is curious, like, because especially since he's now hanging around the house with the kids, it was making me wonder, like, okay, one, he's just obsessed with tormenting this family now, or two, is it because he became him, does he take on some of, like, the person's, like, memories or feelings, and that's why, even though it's warped, and I'm not saying he's going to be a loving father to them now, but, like, the idea that he's got this, like, desire,
to them.
yeah, he's got a desire to be around them now because he took the form of him.
And it begs the question: how is he getting in and out without being seen so easily?
That's a good question.
Because she's screaming, and okay, the mother's running straight in, and obviously she never looks behind her.
Yeah.
But by the time that the kid does look again, he's not there.
And there's water footprints at the the end of the episode, which tell us that okay, she's not crazy. I mean, I never thought she was. It felt like an obvious setup for something being there. But
once maybe, but multiple times. No, this is a thing.
I don't know. It's interesting, and I think the appeal to me about the show, going down this shapeshifter thing now, is that we're doing the gritty HBO Cop thing, but there's a shapeshifter who's the killer. So I like the idea of introducing this supernatural enemy into a world that is fairly otherwise grounded, at least by TV standards, is this
definitely
grounded TV world, and characters who would never consider this as a thing. I think even having someone from the Night of be here gives it this weird credibility of, okay, this is like that type of show, so
it just mentally associates it with that.
So I think that's the interesting part to me, is like just seeing them slowly believe, and maybe just Mendelsohn, maybe everyone around them not so much, but
but maybe that's enough to stop the killer.
Yeah, and of course, like he wants to get help from Bateman's now widowed wife, and she's not happy about it, but ultimately let him in because he's got some information, and this is where we get the whole bite thing comes from. But it does leave it off in a very curious place, and I'm genuinely interested. I don't want to watch episode 3. I want to see where the story goes. So, not much more you can ask for than that, really.
No, it's pretty solid. We said at the start, that there's not a lot of comic relief. I think there's like the odd little bit here or there, like the scene with the car thief, where they're interviewing him. I thought was fairly funny when they're like, right, so when was this? How long ago? And he's just like, I don't know, 3 cars ago. Like, can we narrow this down? And it gets down to he's just like, I don't know, the woman in the store had a smudge on her head.
Yeah,
and I thought it was weird that no one was mentioning it, and they're like, okay, were there anyone else? Yeah, a few others. Right, Ash Wednesday, got it. Okay, we can look that up.
Well, lucky it was on a holiday like that, right? Lucky it was on a specific
convenient
day.
Because to be fair, their line of questioning was, okay, you were in shops, TV. What was on the TV? Did you see a headline? Anything that we can then search and link to that date? So their line of questioning made sense. He's just the kid was an idiot.
It'd be really funny though if it ended up being like St. Patrick's Day, and he's like, it was weird. Everyone was wearing green, and there was like clovers everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's only about like 2 weeks off from St. Patrick's Day, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know when it was. It's weird. Is there anything that stuck out to you? Well, there was a lot of like lights up, and like there was like a fat guy in a red suit. I mean, I don't know. So it was around Christmas then, was it?
Yeah.
Oh dear. But no, it was a fairly solid first couple of episodes. You know. We should mention there's another character they introduced, this cop who's like off duty, who's out hunting, and gets really pissed off that he's called back into work because Mendelsohn has to go on leave, and he gets into a fight at the bar.
Yeah, his annual leave is shite.
Oh yeah, terrible.
It's like even before he get what he was they cut it short. He was only getting like 2 weeks off. I'm like, how I get like 6 weeks off?
Yeah, terrible. But he gives a guy a wedgie. And he's in the station. We don't get a whole lot of him, but clearly they've set him up to be around for future episodes. And Mendelsohn does go to therapy at one point. The therapist, I thought this was a relatively good scene as well, because I think it was interesting to me how he we've seen a bunch of these therapy scenes in movies and shows where the character's really reluctant to get into the therapy, and it starts off kind of like that, but I kind of like that he gets really brutally honest about what he thinks of therapy and about how it's went before and how he feels about himself. And obviously he's still in denial about things and the therapist can still get stuff out of him, but it felt like it wasn't doing the cliche conversation.
I appreciate how it was self-aware in the sense, and he was aware of that as a character in the sense that because it brings up that he had to go to grief counseling after his son died, and he was like, well, did it help? He's like, well, I'm still grieving, so you tell me.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate that. I suspect we're going to see more of these therapy sessions, probably.
Yeah, we could do. Depends what they want us to learn from, because this really felt about mostly learning about the son, the actual kind of some of the details there and how he felt around that.
Yeah, I wonder, because obviously he's on leave right now, but he's doing things anyway. I wonder, is everything set in a short span of time now where he's on leave, or does he get his badge back really quickly? Because part of me wonders, you could do the whole thing with him, the renegade cop who's off the books.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. But hey, so episode 3, by the way, I just noticed the title is called Dark Uncle, which sounds pretty dark. So it sounds pretty sketchy. Tell me it's not the Ginger family. Tell me they don't have a creepy uncle.
Unless that's what Shapeshifter is. He comes into town as the Dark Uncle.
Oh, I'm sure. It's possible. Yeah. It's possible. So no, pretty solid. I'm looking forward to seeing how the mystery unfolds. It's nice to have a weekly HBO show back on, worth talking about. And interestingly, because we got a date for Westworld, I think this more or less goes up to when that comes back.
I mean, there might be a week or two in between. There often is. I don't know without checking.
No, I think it's the week after. The finale is listed here as 9th of March. I think Westworld's the 15th or whatever. So
yeah, you messaged me last night, the 15th.
Yeah. So there you go. So there you go. That's episodes 1 and 2 of The Outsider. We'll be back next week with episode 3. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here, you can head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, like I mentioned earlier. You can get us on the Twitters. I said that already, didn't I? Yeah. But
I think you did.
I did Twitter. Okay. So obviously support everything we do. Rate the podcast 5 stars or whatever on Apple Podcasts. Helps us out a lot if you do that. Share us on the social medias. Check out other stuff we're doing, of course. Still working through Lost in Space Season 2 from Netflix. We got some stuff coming soon. We'll be trying Lock and Key on Netflix. We got Hunters on Amazon Prime next month coming. Might be of interest. There's a bunch of stuff sort of sprinkled out over the next few months TV-wise. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?